Welcome to our Election 2018 Facebook Live conversation with the candidates for New Jersey's 4th Congressional District seat. I'm Randy Bergman, the editorial page editor of the Asbury Park Press, and I'm joined today by Chris Smith, the incumbent Republican, and Josh Welle, the Democratic challenger. Also joining us is my colleague, staff writer Russ Simmer, who covers the district as part of his beat. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Randy. The 4th District includes 43 municipalities, 34 in Monmouth County, 7 in Ocean, and 2 more in Mercer County. President Trump won the district 2 years ago with 56% of the vote, and Republican presidential candidates have carried the district for the past 4 elections. Registered Republicans narrowly outnumber registered Democrats, but 44% of voters are unaffiliated. Congressman Smith is seeking his 20th 2-year term in the House. Mr. Welle is making his first bid for elective office. He was raised in Welle, went to the Naval Academy in Annapolis, and was on active duty in the U.S. Navy for 12 years before starting his own software company.
Thanks. Before we begin, I should note that we've also invited readers to submit questions in advance. We got dozens of them. We'll try to incorporate as many of them as we can into the discussion. We will also include a lot of them in our so-called lightning round, where we'll ask the candidates to give yes or no answers on various issues. Also later we'll give Congressman Smith and Mr. Welle an opportunity to respond to any accusations that have been made against them during the course of the campaign. Our first topic today will be the economy. Is it working for everyone? Congressman Smith, according to a 538 report, has voted in line with the president's position 79% of the time. That's the 6th lowest number of any Republicans in Congress, and it's also less than any member of the New Jersey congressional delegation. Congressman, one of the things you voted against was the Tax Act.
Yeah.
And if you could explain to me why that is, and if you're reelected and the Democrats do gain control of the House, whether you would act to overturn any parts of that tax act.
Thank you, Randy, and thank you both, Russ, as well, for this opportunity. In the past, I have voted for tax cuts, the Bush tax cuts, and others that lowered the rates of taxation. The 401ks, increasing the capabilities there to put more money aside. But this particular tax bill, frankly, had several egregious aspects to it. One of them was the state and local taxes cap of $10,000 in our district. The average for those two is $18,000. So there's a large number of people who will be injured by the tax reform, or whatever you want to call it.
What is your best guess as to how many people in your district will
It's
be
hard to
hurt?
say, but it's a significant amount. But what we found, there's another part to it that I find very, very important, and I have a bill in to reverse it as on the SALT deduction, and that is the issue of charitable contributions. When the standard deduction gets boosted to $24,000, $12,000 each. If you file jointly, it's $24,000. If you don't itemize and you contribute to churches, synagogues, to mosques, to charitable organizations, 501k, those kinds of 501c, I should say, you can't deduct that. So it disincentivizes giving, and we have found, there's good numbers on this, that about $20 billion will be lost to charitable organizations because of this. I have a bill in that would say that, whether you itemize or not itemize, you get to get that deduction.
What about the other
Sure.
aspects of the bill? Certainly the income tax cuts. Do you think it was...
It's another great question.
Is that a problem for you?
I'm concerned about the deficit. I think, I do think we will see some growth, but the deficit will be exacerbated. There's a fear that we will see potential cuts to Medicare as a result of this, and I am adamantly opposed to that.
Okay.
So we need to change this, and I will be voting to try to change it. And I voted no. You mentioned about my number.
Let's give Mr. Welle a chance to jump in here.
So thanks for this. I mean, economic issues, paying for your mortgage, paying for your rent, that's front of mind. Chris Smith hasn't done a town hall in 25 years. He wouldn't make economics the priority, and in his answer, you heard his priority. It was for religious deductions not for this idea that corporations have the lowest tax rate in American history at a time when they're the most profitable, at a time when middle-class families can't, literally are the working poor on Route 35 in Ocean. We have people who are one paycheck away from losing their mortgage. Yesterday, I spent lunch at lunch break in Red Bank. We have a family of 6 living in a motel in Eatontown who can't get ahead, whose husband's working 7 days a week, and he wants to talk about religious exemptions. This is the tale of Chris Smith. His priorities are not our priorities. He doesn't care about the.
Randy, if I can respond to that, because that
Yes,
really,
absolutely.
you know, the first of all, I mentioned the SALT deduction, which will hurt a lot of taxpayers. My opponent is called, he was on a Fox network, and said that he wants to raise taxes on the top 5%. Well, that will hurt a lot of people in our
So you
district.
oppose that?
I would definitely oppose that. Top 5%, that's a lot of working people in this district. And let me add another point. I work on issues of economics all the time. You know, several years ago, I actually wrote a 46% increase in the GI Bill, the Montgomery GI Bill. About 89,000 or so people currently get it. We've seen a doubling of that money that they can use for their college or university or vocational education, and that's all about job training. You get the right job training, the right higher education, you
What
have a
about
greater chance of getting a
What about
job.
the corporate tax cut?
Well, 2 things on the corporate tax. We did have the highest corporate tax among most nations of the world. I'm upset, frankly, and I think it's wrong that and you've editorialized on it at the Asbury Park Press, that the governor actually increased from 9.5% to 11%. We have the highest corporate tax statewide. We exceed California now. We needed to lower the corporate tax. I think we went a little too far.
Mr. Welle?
So now the
The
time.
corporate
Talk
tax.
about corporate policy. You can talk about economic, but his record for 38 years.
No, what
does
is
not
your,
reflect.
what is
Yeah.
your view
My
on the
view is
corporate
it's too
tax
low.
rate?
What's your
And
view?
it's 21% is too low. It needs to be competitive globally. But right now, we just gave handouts to the richest 1% in this country. He misquotes me from Fox Business News. This is a person. If you look at his record, he just said Veterans Care. That was from 2003 or 4.
It's still in effect.
What have
Randy,
you-
it's still in effect.
Sir, I haven't interrupted you.
It's
Please don't
still
interrupt
in
me.
Yeah,
effect.
give him an opportunity.
Sure.
Please, don't monopolize the conversation, please.
Then tell the
This-
truth. Biggest disappointment in this
Please,
campaign is
give him an
my opponent not
opportunity.
telling the
Chris
truth.
Smith will say veterans, and he'll account for something in the 1990s. He's talked about the $1.3 billion to help vets and workforce development. He doesn't address veteran issues of today. He says he has an economic vision for this country or for our district. Virtually none of his legislation has anything to do with economic growth in our district, either on tax reform, new business creation, innovation. He's an afterthought when it comes to economic growth. And we need a renewable economy in Central Jersey, and he's silent on economic growth. What he cares about is taking away a woman's right to choose. He doesn't
Yeah, let's
protect people's
not-
equal rights,
yeah, we
and then he
digress.
Randy, let me just-
for these religious extreme initiatives.
We need to move on to the next topic.
Yeah.
Russ?
Okay, and we're going to get into all that. Let's move now to a topic that has created considerable angst among a segment of Congressman Smith's constituents. That is abortion. Congressman, we'd like to explore what you think the appointment of Brett Kavanaugh to the U.S. Supreme Court will have on the Roe v. Wade decision that legalized abortion in this country. And we wanted to give you an opportunity to clarify your position on abortion.
Sure.
In 2011, you sponsored a bill in which the term forcible rape was used to deny women federal funding for abortions in cases of rape, unless they were beaten, and it would have denied federal abortion funding for statutory rape victims entirely. That word forcible was later removed, or was removed rather, in later versions of the bill. Can you explain why you originally used the word forcible and how you think the issue of abortion might be dealt with considering the landscape of the Supreme Court?
First of all, on Kavanaugh, I don't know. He gave no indication in his testimony which way he would go. It's not clear. Matter of fact, Senator Collins made it clear that she thought he would go and vote to sustain Roe versus Wade. But let me just say a couple of words about the pro-life issue, because I am pro-life. You know it. There's no lack of clarification about my position. I do believe that unborn children are deserving of respect. And if you look at what abortion actually does to a child, dismemberment or chemical poisoning, it does hurt women. It destroys a child. My opponent has done some things that I think are unconscionable in misrepresenting my position to the district, and you probably have seen it. He claims that I want to put women in jail. He shows pictures of handcuffs. What he seems not to know or doesn't care to know is that every bill, including the partial birth abortion ban, that terrible procedure where the baby is half born and then is killed, half born. Even some of the people very much on the other side of the issue said, enough is enough. The child's half born. We need to protect that baby. Specific language was put into that bill, now law, and every other bill like it, to say no woman can be prosecuted ever. Now, did you know that? Did you know that's in the statutes? Did you? Because you false advertise, no matter how anybody feels about the abortion issue, and I respect people on both sides of the divide, I really do, but no matter how they feel, at least get the facts right, and the facts are this.
Could you identify,
Clearly.
though, why you used the word forcible in that
okay.
2011
The word
legislation?
forcible has been used, and I have a fact sheet I can give you that clearly shows it. Joe Biden used the word forcible in many of his statutes. Most of the members on the Democrat side have co-sponsored bills where forcible rape was used. It was used by the FBI for years as part of their statistics gathering. Is a term when there were objections and when the word rape was being redefined. It hadn't been done yet. I took it out myself. I made sure it came out. We went back to, it's another thing. My opponent says that I am not for exceptions. I'm the prime author of the No Taxpayer Funding for Abortion Act. The Hyde Amendment has been around for 40 years. It has always had the life of the mother exception in, and it has rape, incest, and life of the mother.
Okay, Congressman. I'm sorry, Mr. Welle.
This is emblematic of why Chris Smith is so backwards and why his time has passed. He doesn't care about the things that matter to everyday families. We need women's health in this country. We need to fund Planned Parenthood. We need to make sure that we protect, educate young people on sexual transmitted diseases and make sure they're healthy and growing and equal in our society. Every day Chris Smith wakes up for work, his number one agenda is to take away a woman's right to choose. Every day it's to take away the equality for the LGBT community. And instead, we need somebody who's lifting our communities up. He will go into the minutia. He will tell you he was part of this, he will cite every act because that's his only priority. What we should take away from his record and 25 years of not listening to people is that your priorities aren't our priorities. And when you stop representing your people, you're failing the social contract. I served in Afghanistan, Operation Iraqi Freedom. You nominated me to the Naval Academy. It's because you believe in me. You believe in my leadership potential to serve. And now it's a time for a new generation. And I'm not going to sit back while this congressman erodes constitutional liberties, due process, equal protection for everyone, no matter what they look like or where they live. You should join your friends at the Garden State Equality event, whether it's the sheriff or the freeholders, because they believe in progress. You, sir, you don't share the values of Central Jersey.
Well, Randy, I need to respond to that because, again, I've been hearing this for a full year on his blogs, everywhere else. He says the same thing every single time. The people who have voted for me all these years, and I hope they'll consider doing it again this year, know that I have the best casework operation probably in the country. When somebody walks up to me and says, I need help, they have my undivided attention. And how many cases have we resolved? About 90,000. Let me just finish.
That's really off topic here.
Okay, let me get
we
back
need to move on.
But no,
at the end, when you wrap up, you can bring up whatever you like. Let's move on now to a topic. Many polls show that is voters' biggest concern, which is health care. Republicans have worked for years to try and overturn Obamacare. They weren't able to do that successfully, but they've been able to chip away at it and remove a lot of its most important provisions. Mr. Welle, can you talk about the impact that you think changes to Obamacare have made on constituents in the 4th District and what you would do to improve things?
Sure. Everyone knows my message is country over party. I'm not, if you're a Republican or a Democrat, it doesn't matter. I'm here to serve everyone, and everyone deserves access to health care. That's a great equalizer in our society. Chris Smith voted 18 times to erode the Affordable Care Act in this country. In 2010, he said it was the worst bill he's ever seen in 29 years in Congress. And then when he had the time, the opportunity to repeal it, he didn't, because he didn't have the political courage to stand by his convictions. Look, John McCain is a mentor. Because of John McCain, Because of his leadership, people have care in this country. The tax plan took millions of people off the ACA, and it's going to hurt the marketplace. We need to make pharmaceuticals far more affordable in this country. When I'm in Hamilton meeting in coffee shops, the cost has gone from $9 to $66 for pharmaceuticals. Chris Smith takes all of his money from corporations. The majority of his funding comes from Raytheon, Verizon, Comcast. He doesn't get any money from everyday people, so he doesn't serve everyday people. He would have the ability, and after 38 years of incumbency, you'd think he could shape the healthcare debate. That's the story of Chris Smith. It's not enough. You don't get credit for 90,000 constituent service actions because that's the bare minimum. That's the basics. We need you to lead on healthcare policy. Pre-existing conditions, people are fearful for their children after they turn 26 that they won't have care. We need to make this a priority. Those voters out there, if they want care, they need to vote for Democrats on November 6th.
Well,
Do you support Medicare for all?
I support universal health care. I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know what we're going to call it. But when I was in the military, when I was taking off an aircraft carrier or in Afghanistan, and my brethren in arms and sisters in arms, we performed well because we were healthy. I believe if we separate a person's job from their health care, they'll be more productive. Too many people in our district are stuck in jobs they don't like because they need health care. We can do better.
Congressman?
We could have done much better with the original Affordable Care Act had it been done in a bipartisan way. The same mistake that my party made with the tax bill of being exclusive and being single party, not bringing the other side in, led to very, very many mistakes with regards to the Affordable Care Act. President Obama continually said that you would be saving up to $2,500 per family with the Affordable Care Act. PolitiFact looked at that and said that was not true. He said you could keep your doctor, you could keep your health plan, also not true. So there were problems with it, real problems. Unfortunately, when the recommendations came out from my side of the aisle on replacement, that was just as bad as some of the mistakes that have been made on the tax bill. It hurt a lot of people. For example, I've always been for expanding Medicaid. Medicaid was expanded in the Affordable Care Act. Over 630,000 or so people in New Jersey alone are now on the rolls that weren't on it before. That's a great thing. When pre-existing conditions, when my wife was carrying one of our children, I changed jobs. We found out the insurance company would not cover the pre-existing. We had to pay for the full deal when she went to the hospital. Pre-existing is sacrosanct and it needs to be protected. I voted against the replacement part because it was not the right fix. We need to remedy Obamacare, make it better. And that's where working across the aisle, I believe, will actually do that. Let me say something.
Medicare for all. Do you support Medicare for all?
No, I do not. And I'll tell you why. My opponent has said he's 100% sure that people in the district are for Medicare for all. He's for a single payer. What does that mean? I've read the two bills, the two major bills that are in Congress, including Bernie Sanders' bill. It gets rid of all employer-based health care. 157 million people get their health care from their employment. You probably do, here at the Asbury Park Press. All of that is gone, and it shifts over to the government. There have been two major studies done as to what the costs will be. 32 to 38 trillion. 32 seems to be the commonly accepted number, trillion over 10 years. Huge tax increases, the dislocation, people who had plans that they really like with their employer, gone overnight.
Mr. Welle?
This is tough to digest because
It's the
you've
truth.
been in Congress
It's a
38
simple
years.
truth.
You're a 38-year incumbent,
Simple
and you're
truth.
just really excited and hopeful that we need to fix this thing. That's your job. Your job is to shape the
Mr.
debate.
Willie, that's what I've been
I'm
doing.
sorry, can
that's
I finish?
No, but you make these accusations.
Just
I did nominate him.
Let
You gotta let
him
him
finish,
finish.
please.
Chris Smith just said, I said single payer 100% of my. I didn't interrupt him
we'll
when he
show you
made
where
a
it's
false
at.
accusation. I didn't have to interrupt you when you made a false accusations, and I'll use my time to make clear that you're not a leader on the things that matter in this district. You don't shape the healthcare debate. You're a backbencher on these issues, and you're not as bipartisan as you say. Over 83% of your bills you've sponsored or co-sponsored have been with the Republican Party. You've passed, in the last 38 years, you have sponsored 733 bills in the House of Representatives, and only 43 have become laws. You came into office with Chuck Schumer. 4 years later, Mitch McConnell. These people have risen, and they're shaping the healthcare debate. Chris Smith, he hasn't even been promoted. He's been demoted. He has no chairmanship in the House of Representatives. This is about leadership. He thinks it's about writing laws. It's not about writing laws, sir. It's about passing laws. It's about having impact.
Let me respond to
Give
that.
the
First of all, on writing legislation, Randy, and you know this, and it's all, you go to the Library of Congress and you can just look it up. I rank second in the entire U.S. House of Representatives, 435 members, in getting my bills enacted into law. They are on very important issues like autism. Autism, I met with a family from Brick Township, Bobby and Billy Gallagher, and became very concerned that we had a prevalent spike, that we had unmet need when it comes to autism. So what did I do? I wrote a major law. The most recent one's called Autism Cares. Now, you talk about bills getting passed. Frank Pallone has, I think, 9 bills. Cory Booker, that became law. Cory Booker has 2. Now, I'm not going to criticize him. He does other things. He speaks out on issues. That's all great. But in our debate on News Channel 12, Mr. Welle said, legislation is not leadership. That's the most absurd thing I think I've ever heard. It's all about writing legislation, and when it's not my bill, I work on other people's bills just as hard. The Lugar/Georgetown organization that looks into bipartisanship puts me in the top 5% of members of the House in terms of bipartisanship. I reach across the aisle in order to get things done. You know, I have formed 14 working groups on Alzheimer's, autism, let me finish, Alzheimer's, autism, on heart and stroke.
Okay, let's give Mr. Welle one last chance.
And there's a bipartisan effort to get more money for research. We just saw a 400% increase in Alzheimer's.
Look, when you're in office 38 years, you're going to have the highest numbers than anybody
else. Not necessarily.
Because of your longevity. It's not about leadership; it's about legislation that matters.
And the autism doesn't matter. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm a strong supporter of all.
Let
Why would you
Mr.
say
Welle.
it doesn't matter?
I
Let
think it's
Mr.
really
Welle
important.
finish, Congressman.
I wrote it.
Sir.
Prime author of.
So,
all right,
what I'm talking about is what's most important that comes through here is that he will cite his number 2, and I'll put up 2 fingers, and he'll say 5%. The issue is this. He's not listening to our voters. He doesn't care about the things that have the most impact in our lives. Kids are scared to go to school. We have an immigration crisis in this country. We have a climate change crisis in this country. And this gentleman wakes up every day trying to erode equal liberties and civil rights in this country. He has no respect for the diversity in this community.
Randy.
And he doesn't value the things we value.
We need to move on to the next topic.
So Randy, let me just say one brief thing. I
Very
wake up every
briefly.
day. How do you know what I wake up and think about? You're so presumptuous. You say things in a laundry list. You say the same thing to every group. You're doing it again here today. And it is so misleading. You say that I want to...
Please don't call me presumptuous. I'm a commander in the Navy.
And let me also say
I've
this.
served
Let me
12
also
years
say
in
this.
defense of this country. Do not put me in a box
You're presumptuous,
and
you're presumptuous
try
when it
to
comes
put
to
me in a
my
box.
record and how I think. I wouldn't say I know how you think.
I look at your record, sir, after
And the record is one of
38
accomplishment.
years. You care about human rights.
Legislative accomplishment.
Chris Smith,
I have
you
a
do
bill
not
that,
value
I
what
have
you
a
value.
bill. I have a bill that just passed in the Senate to help the Christians and the Yazidis. It just passed
we need
on October 11th.
I'm sorry, I need to cut
Get
this off. We need to
humanitarian
move on. Next, we're going to ask both of you a number of questions on issues. And in the interest of time, if you can give us just a yes or no answer to each one of them. The first one, and I'll start with you, Mr. Welle. Do you believe the middle class is better off today than it was 2 years ago?
No, because people can't pay their mortgage and pay their rent.
Congressman?
For some, but we need to do much better.
Do you believe President Trump has been good for America? Mr. Welle?
No, and we've lost our leadership around the world.
Just
There's
yes or no,
there's
please.
more hatred than ever before in America.
Congressman?
In some areas like the Iran deal and Middle East, yes, there have been some mistakes made, and I wish he would stop tweeting.
Overall?
He's made some good progress on some things. The economy, we're down to 4.2% unemployment. That's a good thing.
Do you support the legalization of marijuana for recreational purposes?
I support decriminalization of marijuana.
Congressman?
I believe that there should be a civil penalty. I'm not for what the governor is looking to do.
Do you support increased American intervention in conflicts in the Middle East beyond air support?
Could you say that again?
Do you support increased American intervention in conflicts in the Middle East beyond air support? Do you support ground troops?
I support American alliances around the world with our NATO partners to create more stability and do whatever the mission requires.
Congressman?
It should only be done based on the facts presented at the time. There should be no, we're just going to do this.
Do you support Trump's decision to back out of the Iran nuclear deal?
I don't support his decision to back out of the deal because it was a slap in the face of our alliances, and we've lost trust around the world.
I strongly support it, backing out. It's not backing out, it was an egregiously and a flawed deal. And Bob Menendez and I and others have been outspoken that this is one of the worst deals that have ever been entered into.
Do you support Trump's decision to withdraw from the nuclear arms treaty with Russia?
No, I think he is escalating a second nuclear arms race. It's a return to the Cold War rhetoric, and it's wrong.
I've read what the justification was from the State Department. Under Putin, they have not been agreeing to or abiding by the rule that was set by Reagan and Gorbachev originally when the INF, the Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treatment, was agreed to. If you have a treaty and one side's violating it with impunity, yes, let's renegotiate and go back. But right now, it's not being adhered to.
All right. Do you support construction of a wall along the Mexican border?
No, I don't support a wall because it's bad for our alliances. It goes against our American values.
Yes, no, please.
I do. Voted for the secure fence in 2006, and interestingly enough, Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton both voted for it.
Do you believe Dreamers should be given a path to citizenship?
100%. We need to step up
Yes,
and
I
make
do.
sure we take care of DACA kids.
Yes. Okay. Do you support requiring immigrants who are in the U.S. unlawfully to return to their country of origin before they are eligible for citizenship?
I don't. It's impractical. It's not economically viable, and it doesn't help our economy.
And I know Bush was talking about it originally, but it is very hard for them to go back and then come back here.
Okay. Okay. Russ?
It's not workable.
Why don't we switch the order up, and we'll start with you, Congressman, and then Mr. Welle. Do you believe President Trump should be required to release his tax returns?
I would hope that he would, but whether that's required is still an open question.
Yes,
or no?
we need transparency in our public officials.
Do you believe President Trump and all future presidents should be required by law to release their tax returns?
No. We have financial disclosure, and I don't know if you've released your tax, have you?
I haven't been.
We'll just stick to the
So-
question.
I'm not,
no,
sure,
yes,
I'm not
no.
sure
So,
why
Mr.
that's
Welle?
relevant. I haven't looked at this about any legislation being passed. You should know where my values are. We should be open and honest and transparent. This job is about public service, and we work for the people. They don't work for us.
Do you think President Trump's trade policies have been good for the average American consumer?
I think, unfortunately, countries like China,
Yes or no, please.
I think it's moving in the right direction. A new NAFTA is being negotiated that I think, while I'm not all for it yet, AFL-CIO is looking at it, and they have endorsed me, by the way. It is better than what we had before.
Okay. Mr. Welle?
Things will cost more because of tariffs, and they are the precursor to conflict, so I don't support the tariff efforts.
And let's appreciate the brevity there. Let's try to keep it a yes or no. Do you think the threat of global warming is as severe as spelled out in the recent Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report?
Well, I read the report as it is focused to lawmakers, and it does raise some very serious questions, and I do believe that it is a problem that has to be resolved.
So that's a yes.
Yes.
Yes, climate change is very real, and my generation is very concerned.
Do you believe the recent rash of severe hurricanes and other extreme weather is attributable to human-induced global warming?
It's a great question. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yes, I think there's sufficient facts and science that it's being caused by climate change.
All right, it's back to me. We'll start again with you, Mr. Welle. Do you support a ban on bump stocks,
Yes, I support safer public spaces. And
Congressman?
Yes, and I voted for it.
Do you oppose any law requiring reciprocity among states for honoring gun permits?
No, I don't believe we should have concealed carry reciprocity because it keeps us from feeling safe in our state.
I've been endorsed by the Brady campaign, and
Yes or no?
I do believe that we should not allow concealed carry,
Do you support?
especially given that 12 states don't do any real background checks and, for those who might carry them into New Jersey.
Do you support universal background checks with a database for all gun sales in the U.S. and a ban on assault weapons?
Yes.
Yes, and I voted for both.
Should people with a felony conviction be allowed to vote?
Yes, we need to include as many people in the democratic process as possible.
Okay. Russ?
Okay.
Congressman Smith needs to answer that question, sir.
I'm sorry.
It's a difficult question. I think there ought to be a time of recovery back into society. I don't think it should be automatic as soon as somebody gets out of prison with a felony, and it would depend on what the crime was.
Okay, Russ?
Thanks. Let's switch it up again. Mr. Welle, you can answer first, and then
I
we'll
think
go
I
to.
just did that.
Oh, apologies.
Yeah, Congressman.
Congressman Smith, and then Mr. Welle. Do you believe the decline in union membership is at least partially responsible for the decades-long wage stagnation of the middle class?
Absolutely, yes.
I'm not so sure. I think the issues of wage stagnation have a lot more to do with globalization and tax and tariffs and the role of government in the economy.
Do you think the withholding tax threshold for Social Security should be raised?
No.
One more time?
Do you think the withholding tax threshold for Social Security should be raised?
No.
Okay. Do you support making cuts to Social Security, or Medicare to balance the federal budget?
No, I don't, and I was endorsed by the National Committee to preserve Medicare and Social Security.
No, and Chris Smith is a Republican, and the Republican Party, because of the last tax plan, is at the cusp of eroding Social Security and Medicare in this country.
Okay. And we may have touched on this one earlier, but do you believe in a single-payer Medicare for all healthcare system?
No, and one last point on that. Between the ages of 19 and 64, 70% of the people in this country get their health care, their insurance, from their employer.
Okay.
That is gone if Mr. Welle's idea prevails.
Well, I'm sorry.
The question was, do you believe in a single-payer or Medicare for
I
all
believe we
healthcare
need
system?
massive healthcare reform because not everyone has a job, and we need to allow mobility in the new economy as people reinvent themselves into 21st century careers. So this idea that you're relying on your job for healthcare is an injustice, and we can do better as Americans.
So you think everyone should be covered? Do you think health care is a right?
100%. I think healthcare is a public good. It's a right, and if we get the best out of people, we'll be far more productive and more economic.
Well, again, if the government runs it and employers the ability to choose among various plans, I think it could lead to an erosion of high-quality health care, plus the tax issue. I mean, there's no conjecture here that's not without a lot of good analysis. We're talking about a $32 trillion price tag.
He's putting a price tag on people's health. And as we
Well,
know
who's
in this
gonna pay
country,
for it?
there is incredible
But why would you want to throw
There
people
are
off?
also, there are
There's
also a lot
incredible
of varying,
inequality.
there are also a lot of varying estimates on the cost.
Yeah,
But
$30 trillion is not
$32 trillion, right.
what we should accept as the norm.
Well, the
There's so
Urban
much
Institute
inequality
talked
in
about
this country that if everyone doesn't feel healthy, doesn't have the ability to achieve their version of the American dream, then we're not going to be as productive as we can. Too many people are fearful of getting sick.
But Randy, that's why we have very important programs and increased eligibility for Medicaid, which helps the poor, it helps the disabled, and increasingly, 4 out of 7 people in nursing homes in New Jersey are on Medicaid. That's why I fought so hard to keep the Medicaid increase alive. I've brought 3, just so you know, health clinics to our district. In one of his statements, my opponent said, and this is important, he goes, where are the health clinics for New Jersey? He didn't even know, 3 of them. And the one in Brick reaches 71,000 patient visits per year. I brought that here.
So Chris Smith likes a credit claim on the myriad of these things.
It's the truth.
What's important
your
to know
paper
is you
Let
can't
him
be the
respond.
champion of Medicaid and the most vulnerable and not fund Planned Parenthood, which is about women's health. You can't be the champion of Medicaid and be a Republican and acquiesce and be silent as we try to erode the basic building blocks of our country. We are at a crossroads. If we don't hold this president accountable, the richest of the rich will stay rich in this country, and you're enabling that.
Okay,
You know,
we got to move on.
Let me say one thing about silent.
no,
You'll have an opportunity.
I speak on the floor and in committee and in my
You can
district
use,
all
you
the
can
time.
use your
Yeah,
time
you'll
at the
have
end to say whatever you
thank you.
like.
Okay.
Now I'd like to give each of you an opportunity to respond to some of the accusations that have made, either you've made against one another or other people have made. After we do that round, I'll give each of you an opportunity to bring up one accusation that you think requires response that we haven't covered.
Thank you.
Russ?
Let's start with an allegation that is made about you, Congressman. Mr. Welle claims that you live in Virginia and not in the 4th District. Is that true? And if not, how much time do you spend at your New Jersey home?
Okay, a great deal of time in this Congress alone that began on on January 3rd, 2017 to today. I've made 87 round trips to the district, D.C., to New Jersey, back to D.C. 87. I meet with my constituents all the time, every day in Washington, in my district offices, and more importantly, out in the field. I'm like the doctor who does site visits. He goes out and does home visits. I'm constantly out in the district meeting with people. Our home, our primary residence is in Hamilton Township, which is in the Mercer County part, as you know. We have a secondary home in the Northern Virginia area. And let me just say this, every member of Congress has to say somewhere when he or she are in Washington. A number of people, scores, live in their offices. I don't think that's such a hot idea. Frank Pallone, who's my colleague and friend, he owns a home. He's listed as his primary residence in Washington, D.C. It's almost $1 million home. Well, if that's what he wants to do, to be close to our work, we're both on assignment there, doing the work of the people that sent us, that's what it should be all about. Now, my opponent, you got to know this, he voted in 2017 in Virginia when he was no longer military. He had now he's working a private sector job. That has failed, and there's all kinds of questions swirling about that business. But he voted in 2017, 2016 in Virginia. I was born in Rahway, grew up in Island, met my wife at Trenton State College. I proposed to her, proposed marriage in Belmar on a jetty. We love New Jersey. We just love it.
That's not the issue.
But we live there.
My gosh,
Mr. Welle.
there's a lot there. The proposal.
You're always condescending. You know, it's really.
It's not
I've heard
condescending.
people say after the News Channel 12 debate, they couldn't believe how condescending you were,
Yeah.
including students.
Yeah, well,
condescending.
You know, you would use that language. You came into
course I would.
office when you were 28 years old. You had 0 qualifications. You're an
27,
You're an accidental congressman, and you were told in
Condescending.
1984 that you
Condescending.
were too young, and you were told that you weren't qualified, which you weren't, based on your background. I will share this with you, sir. I'm not being condescending. I'm shining a light on how backwards and perverse your entire career has been.
There's another slur, perverse.
So here's what I'd share with you.
This is what this man does.
The issue is whether or
Where did
not
you live? When
you
you were out
voted
of-
in
when you were out of
Virginia.
business.
So you have to get your research right, because in the
vote in
election
Virginia?
in
Did you vote in
2017,
Virginia?
Congressman, let him
Congress,
Okay.
you need, please, sir. Come on, sir.
What?
So in 2017, I voted for Governor Murphy, and I voted for several great leaders on the Democratic ticket in New Jersey, and I did that in Rumson. So your facts are wrong. That's where I voted.
So you didn't vote in Virginia at all?
Sir, I voted.
You didn't vote in Virginia at all?
I did not vote in 2017 in Virginia. Next topic.
16?
Sir, please, you're being very disrespectful.
No, I'm not.
Congressman, yeah, just let him
Okay,
speak.
that's fine.
So is the question about my residency or his residency?
Yes,
Well,
it
the
was-
question
it
was
was
about
about
his
the congressman.
residency.
And he made it my
accusations
residency.
that-
Look.
And I think we've covered it, so
I
maybe
mean, I
we
was
can-
born in Trenton. I was raised in Welle Township. At 18 years old, I joined the military because you nominated me to the Naval Academy. I served over 12 years active duty. I served in Afghanistan, Operation Iraqi Freedom. I was the second in command of a minesweeper for 19 months in the Middle East. I have served in harm's way. And after, I used the GI Bill, which you're a strong proponent of, to get an education at the Harvard Kennedy School. My company was incubated at the best universities and incubators around this country. We did work with the Pentagon. We had a headquarters in DC. And after 2.5 years of government technology, we dissolved the business. The accusation of a failed business failed to dissolve properly. We were profitable, we raised venture capital, we employed people, far better than you, sir. Sir,
Then why did you sell it?
Sir,
Why did you
please.
just dissolve it? It was so
that
profitable.
shows your lack of understanding for the digital
All
economy.
right, I think
and
let's
the
cut
private
this
sector.
off. We need to move
could've
on.
sold it.
Next, an allegation that's been made against you, Mr. Welle. It's been reported that you were nearly 6 months late in filing your financial disclosure form. It's also been reported that after you dissolved your software company, Severn Pacific, which I guess was in 2017, that you owed $130,000 in back taxes to the state of Delaware. Why was the company dissolved, and what is your source of income today?
Sure. So the first question was on the FEC filing. We were several weeks late. It wasn't 6 months. And there was a $250 fine if you don't file your paperwork. This is my first time running for Congress. This is your 20th. So you probably know the FEC requirements like the back of your hand. that was paid from my personal account, not from the campaign account, and that's how you handle FEC issues. There's no malfeasance there. As it relates to my company, this company was dissolved, stopped operating in the summer of 2017. We filed with the IRS and dissolved the business in our tax returns. We did not effectively dissolve at the Delaware state level, and we were in. There's a database that shows back taxes 130, but when actually calculated, it was 1,000. Chris Smith hires people to call companies to dig up. It's true. Dig up information, to pretend to be members of my company, to hash up information. This is true, in order to exacerbate and sensationalize. That's his mudslinging. That's the facts.
Let me ask you about your company. When did you leave the military? What year?
March 2015.
And then you formed
at
a
the Harvard
software
Kennedy
company.
School. Yep.
When did you form your software company?
In the spring of 2015.
Okay. And did it require capitalization?
Yeah, we had investors in our company. We hired a chief technology officer. We delivered products to the DoD and services. It was very, very successful. If anybody knows anything about starting a business from scratch, it's incredibly difficult to have an idea, to raise the venture, to hire the staff to deliver products. After 2.5 years, we realized that government technology is too slow. There's not enough growth. And one of the things I want to do with Ash Carter and General Mattis and the Pentagon is make us more innovative. We know about the Defense Innovation Unit. We know that Google is trying to participate more and make our military more competitive. That's why we need a new generation of leaders. We need innovation in defense, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, things that Chris Smith doesn't inherently understand or advance.
How can you utilize your 2.5 years with a company that apparently didn't succeed as a selling point in your candidacy?
Well, to be clear, success is not, your benchmark of success and mine may be different. To have the courage and confidence to start a business with other veterans, to go out with your idea into the marketplace and raise over $350,000 in venture capital is quite the success, sir. And then to deliver products and services as young entrepreneurs is very impressive. So I'm very proud of that effort, and we dissolved the business professionally and have great relationship with our clients because we wanted to pursue other paths.
So what is the source of your income today?
I'm a full-time candidate for Congress. If you want to win in this business and unseat an incumbent who hasn't adapted and has had one job in his whole professional life, I need to be focused on being a full-time candidate. My spouse has an income from her company, and we're able to survive on that.
Randy, can I just say very briefly, again, Mr. Welle is so confused. You don't file your financial disclosure with the FEC. And he just said it a couple times. Now it's my turn. You don't file with the FEC. You file. There's an Ethics in Government Act. He was 133 days late, and only when he was called out did he fail to file. All the other candidates in New Jersey, as far as I know, raised at least $5,000, filed. It is the most basic of all. It's all about transparency. You got to file this so that everyone knows. He falsely talked about how his company was dissolved. Then we found out that it was not dissolved. And let me just say a point about that. Who does he blame? He blames his agent in Delaware, who then comes back very strongly and says, "Don't blame me. You didn't tell us to do this." So he always blames somebody else. There's now letters to his campaign, 3 that we've seen, or maybe 4, but at least 3, saying that he's gotten his FEC filings, that Federal Election Commission filings, all fouled up. If you can't do the basic paperwork of being a candidate, how do you expect to write legislation? You know, most of the ideas that become law that I work on, including our trafficking laws, International Megan's Law, the Sean and David Goldman International Child Abduction and Prevention Act, which came out of, and the Asbury Park Press did yeoman's work on helping to bring Sean Goldman back. I wrote a law, took 5 years to get passed. It was all my idea, and because I all about the particulars, the intricacies of lawmaking, and again, second in the whole country. Well, let me finish.
Randy.
But he did not file,
Just
133
30
days
seconds, and
That's
then we move
unbelievable.
on.
Sir, this paperwork you're describing, I'm accountable for any paperwork missteps.
Been a lot of them.
It's a learning process with the FEC for how you file, and I hire people to be a part of this team. I'm learning. I'm accountable for it, for activities in my company, which I stand behind. I'm accountable for running the best campaign you've ever had to run against. We raised $500,000.
The best campaign I ever run against was
Chris
Jeffrey
Smith,
Laurenti.
for heaven's sakes.
Jeffrey Laurenti was the
Okay, let's
candidate I've ever run
Let him
let's
finish
move
his
on.
thought.
We raised over
over
Okay.
$500,000 more than President
Okay.
for the last 90 days.
All right.
Accountability for that is a meticulous process, and I promise you.
And you filed wrongly with the FEC.
Sir, during the re-election next year,
Let's
when
move
you're
on,
retired, it'll be
please.
much better.
Mr.
Again,
Welle,
condescending
let's
and
move on.
rude.
To another, this is an allegation that's been made about you, Congressman, not only in the past but today. Mr. Welle has described your views on marriage and gender equality as perverse.
Right.
His campaign sent out a release citing a letter you wrote to your college newspaper, Trenton State, in 1972, stating your view that homosexuality was by nature unnatural and immoral. It equated homosexuality with sexual perversion and living with the Antichrist. Mr. Welle says your actions in office indicate that your views have not changed based on your co-sponsorship of five bills and constitutional amendments to limit the definition of marriage. The question, have your views on homosexuality changed?
I believe, as Barack Obama did in the year 2008, and I was in the audience along with John McCain, when he was asked about marriage, and he said, I believe marriage is the union between a man and a woman. Then he said, as a Christian, I believe it's a sacred union. This is Barack Obama now, and God is in the mix. I believe strongly in marriage between a man and a woman myself. John McCain had the exact same view. When in the Defense of Marriage Act came up and Bill Clinton signed it back in the 1990s, Bob Menendez voted the same way I did, as did several other members of the House and Senate, some of whom have different positions now.
But your views have not changed since
my
that
views are that
1972
my views
letter?
are that it's there needs to be space for a religious belief. Catholics, not all, certainly the Catholic Church, many Christian denominations, Orthodox Jews, Muslims, many faith entities, as a matter of basic fundamental teaching, believe that the Bible, for example, makes it clear that we are to love everyone, respect everyone, but that doesn't mean you agree with everything that people do. Here's where the issue engages itself now in Congress, and I would wonder where Mr. Welle would stand on this. Catholic Charities has facilitated 82,000 adoptions over the last 10 years, 82,000. In Philadelphia, they now have been told they cannot, I say again, cannot engage in any adoptions anymore because they believe in placing a child with a father and a mother. In some states like California, Massachusetts, they have said Catholic Charities and Catholic other faith-based organizations, you are out of the adoption process and you're out of the foster care process. And my belief is that for faith, and even the man that wrote the decision for the United States Supreme Court.
Let's wind this down. I want to get
Okay,
Mr. Welle.
I'll finish with this. Who wrote the Supreme Court decision legalizing same-sex marriage? He has a whole passage in his statement that there needs to be room to respect the positions of people who, based on their faith-based beliefs, believe that marriage is not
Mr. Welle.
between.
Mr. Welle.
This is a pretty sad moment for our state and our country, that someone's been in office 38 years and not have evolved. If you're out there and you have a different sexual orientation, or if you believe that we ought to evolve as a society, you need to vote Chris Smith out. We need change because he has not evolved. He went to Colts Neck High School, scared the heck out of young people. I had mothers come into my office fearful for their kids that this guy is a congressman still. He does not believe in human rights for all. He doesn't believe that gay rights are human rights. I went through the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell in the military. If you want to serve in the military, I want you to be able to defend this country. We had to put practices in place so that gay and transgender members of our society can serve their country. He doesn't support that stuff. He invokes John McCain, who passed this summer. You invoke other people, and Clinton and Obama and Amanda. Stand by your own actions, sir. Don't invoke these other people. He is backwards. And in 2018, he doesn't have the political courage to say what is morally right is that we should treat everyone equally in this society. It is time for him to go, and everybody out there should stand behind him.
Well, let me make very clear that every person, no matter their sexual orientation, enjoy the Bill of Rights, freedom of speech, assembly, all of the fundamental rights that every one of us who aren't in that, we're not gay or lesbian, believe. Human rights are for everyone. Now, marriage between a man and a woman is not a fundamental human right either. It's a pact. It is something entered into either civilly or it's done by way of a church, but then obviously you've got to fill out paperwork for the state as well. I do believe, frankly, that the only issue, the major issue that we're going to face in Congress is whether or not there's no space for people who are listening to this debate who believe, as I do, that marriage is between a man and a woman, just as Barack Obama said in 2008. And when I was in the audience, let me make this clear. I was there for John McCain. I was part of his campaign team. I was sitting right in the front, just feet away from Barack. I said, we agree on marriage, when he said that. Now, he's changed. I respect him. But frankly, those of us who have not should not be disrespected, condescended to, and
All
talk
right,
about.
let's move on to the
You have
next.
to represent everyone, sir.
Let's move on.
Look,
Okay.
stay out of our bathrooms, stay out of our
Oh,
bedrooms.
God.
Let's-
Keep all of
Come
the
on.
perverse ideas out of
Mr.
our
Welle,
Perverse.
Mr. Welle.
Perverse.
Okay.
That's a
Next
slur.
question, Russ.
Again,
Mr. Welle,
Yes, sir.
it has been reported that you bought 2 houses, one in Arlington, Virginia in June 2016 for $677,000, and another in June of 2017, excuse me, in Rumson for $577,000. These deeds didn't list any mortgages. Were there mortgages on either of these homes? And how did you afford to buy 2 homes so soon after leaving the military?
Yeah, so 100% they have a mortgage. I'm not sure. Did you research it yourself, or did you take that from a blog?
I'm not sure.
We got it from another source.
Yes.
So that source is untrue, and it's not a credible source. No one.
The
could
untrue part is that
Of
there
course
were
we had
mortgages.
a mortgage.
Okay.
Come
All
on,
right.
guys.
Go ahead.
Come on, guys.
Go ahead.
You can't get a
This
house.
is
with a
the
car.
opportunity for you to respond
But that's what
to
I'm
these
saying. You guys are
allegations.
better than this. Like, we don't need to re-report things that are untrue. Of course I had a mortgage. And I have a good credit score. I paid my bills. I ate ramen when I was in deployment. You know how many days I've been deployed at sea? 1,000. Do you know how many times I've been deployed in harm's way? Years. And with that, I pinched my pennies and I saved my money so that I could provide for my family. I'm very honored to have a wife who's so talented and so hardworking and is a co-breadwinner. And you talk about these issues of fundamental rights. The problem we have is that our HR policies don't respect lesbian couples. Our medical insurance policies don't respect LGBT couples. And this idea of inclusion, he thinks is about marriage. It's about the second order effects.
All right, let's get back.
So just coming back, so yes, I bought a house, and yes, I bought a house in Rumson, New Jersey. This is my home. I'm not going to let Chris Smith or anybody else tell me that this is not my home, sir. I worked at Jersey Mike's on Route 70. I bus tables in Belmar. I was a lifeguard in Spring Lake. I used to take my bicycle down to the Manasquan Inlet. Come on, guys.
Okay,
well, it
Congressman,
is shocking that Mr. Welle, like a few other candidates before him, because this is regurgitating the same old lie every campaign, are suggesting that I don't live here. I had jury duty last year, right around now. I've had jury duty many other times because I live here. And it's almost absurd in the extreme. If you say a lie enough times, some people may begin to believe it. As I said before, some members sleep in their offices. As a matter of fact, there's an ethics complaint that's been filed by the Black Caucus that's unethical because they get free lodging by sleeping in their offices. I don't know where that goes, but I would never want to do that. I'm on assignment on behalf of the people of the 4th District. I roll up my sleeves every single day and work hard for the people of our district, and I have delivered. One of the things I'm working on very strongly, and I've had partial success, is in the area of Lyme disease to help people who are suffering from Lyme.
One more allegation. This one is against you, Congressman. And then, like I said, we'll give each of you a chance to bring up any other charges during the campaign you think might be unfair. Congressman, one of the common complaints against you is the fact you haven't had a town hall in 25 years. A lot of people have reported to me that you don't respond to letters and phone calls if they come from people who you think might be opposed to your policies. Don't you think you have an obligation to meet your constituents at town halls, even if those constituents may be coming to complain about your votes and policies?
Well, let me say, Randy, very clearly that I meet with constituents every single day. I go to schools. I reach out and have forums. Your reporter, let me just finish, please. Your reporter was actually at one of my meetings with the Alzheimer's Association's membership from Monmouth County and the 4th District. A group came in that has been clamoring for me to have these town meetings, and they called it an ambush. And they got right into my face, so close with cameras and everything else, and that's unfortunately, and I say this with deep regret, I used to love town meetings, but now they have become something far different. And we got to be honest about this. You know, there's groups that they write handbooks on how to disrupt town meetings so that the Republican incumbent, you know, gets really harassed rather than a good give and take. I believe in civil dialogue. We have a book this thick filled with threats against me by many of the same people that are clamoring for town meetings. They use the four-letter word at obscenity ad nauseum on their blogs. One of the people, and you know this because you saw it yourself, that is working very closely with Mr. Welle, when Mother Teresa was elevated to sainthood in the Catholic Church, she called Mother Teresa a sadist. She's one of the ones who says he's got to have a town meeting. I meet with my constituents. I believe in creating a two-way street.
So you're saying that you're basically fearful
Not
for your
fearful.
physical...
No, not fearful at all. I'm concerned that it is nothing but an exercise in not just got you, but then falsifying what it is that you say, taking clips, cutting them up, the way it was done after I spoke at Colts Neck High School. And I'm so glad we taped what I said to those students. I didn't have students crying. I had people that came up, and some of them are now working as interns, who loved what I did at that particular forum at Colts Neck High School. Like
Why
I do
didn't you participate in the Brookdale Forum?
Let's not forget, we just had a debate last night with Bob Eugen and Bob Menendez. They're having one debate for the entire state. I'm having two face-offs with my opponent. That's what Frank Pallone has done. He has two face-offs.
Mr. Welle?
We should be doing a debate just like Mikey Sherrill did, Andy Kim, and Tom Malinowski are. It's too important. That exercise in gotcha is an exercise in democracy, sir. You are breaking the sacred trust that veterans have fought for, that my friends and I sacrificed for. Some didn't come home because they were defending this Constitution.
They were defending town meetings with people who go in to bring incivility? I don't think so.
They were defending the right of people to hold their elected
And
officials.
I am all for that.
Sir, I'd really like to have an opportunity to speak without him interrupting. It's
You
really
keep saying things that are condescending.
No, Congressman, let him
it's
speak.
really-
You can respond, but just let him
It's,
finish.
it's tough. It's unprofessional. So where was I? We were talking about this sacred trust, this idea of the Constitution, that my buddies and I, when we deployed, it wasn't about Republican and it wasn't about Democrat. It was about this sacred institution we call the Constitution. And when you don't answer the people you serve, you are breaking a social contract. You work for them, even if they have picketing and signs, even if they make you sad. Where were you in the March for Our Lives? Where were you? There were 500 people in the parking lot of your Freehold office. You were nowhere to be found. Where were you at the separation of family marches in Red Bank? I've been out there for 12 months. We've done over 300 events. I've done 5 town halls, and I'll do one in Manchester tonight, and I hope you join us.
Okay.
You are welcome tonight to be. You are welcome to be a part of that social
All
contract.
right, now,
Randy, I have nothing.
we're running out of time.
Exchanges all the time with people in my district. All the time.
One opportunity for each of you to bring up to respond to any accusations that you feel have been made about you that are unfair. I'll start with you, Mr. Welle.
That have been unfair?
Yeah.
I mean, this is running for Congress. This is not softball. This ain't kickball. You have to have the courage to put yourself out there. This idea.
No. Things that have been said about you that are untrue.
I've answered every idea you just put in front of me.
right.
I have nothing. What I do have to say is we've done a disservice to the people in this district. We haven't talked about criminal justice reform. Half the mayors in our district are struggling. They don't even know who Chris Smith is. We have an opportunity right now to lift up Central Jersey, to be the strongest region of this state and the country. We have the means. We have the ideas.
We'll save this for your closing remarks.
I tell you-
Congressman, anything you want to bring up?
Yeah, Mr. Welle, in his tweets and his ads, so much distorts my record. And we have chapter and verse. We can share it with you if you'd like to see it, but one that gets me the most. He says, I have no empathy for the families of our veterans. I've written 14 major laws. I mean, you probably don't even know how much money is in the veterans budget this year, do you? You know? No,
Congressman.
This is not
You
a
don't
quiz
know. Of
for
course
me.
you don't know.
Congressman.
Of course you
Sir,
don't know. It's $89.5 billion. It's the greatest amount of money, and 8.5 or so billion is going towards mental health for those who are suffering from PTSD, the suicide crisis that we're facing. But I've written 14 major laws. One of those laws was called the Service Members Civil Relief Act. And what it did, it updated a 1944 law that when a person is deployed, their families don't find themselves going bankrupt, being thrown out of their house, having a car repossessed because they can't meet the payments, whatever it might be. And this took all of the case law and said, we've got the backs of the families. Added to that, I wrote a bill that's now law, current law, called the Homeless Veterans Comprehensive Assistance Act. It is one of my proudest achievements. What does that law do? It has provided housing, job training so they could become part of this economy, efforts to help with PTSD, those who have, or chemical dependency issues like drugs or alcohol or both. And when I wrote the law, there were 295,000 veterans on the street at any given night. You know what it is today?
30 seconds.
About 40,000, which is 40,000 too many. And we're going to try, I have another bill pending right now that would link up the community health centers so that homeless veterans can have better utilization and access to that health care. We're talking about 11,000 outreaches with community health centers. That just it multiplies the ability to help our homeless veterans.
Let's move on
14
to
major
let's move
laws.
on to
I
the
didn't know, was that an accusation he just responded to or reciting?
yes.
his
He was
record?
saying that
No, you said I have no empathy and
He was
for these
responding
people.
to a suggestion that I said he had no empathy. That is untrue. I've never said
We
he
have
had
it.
no
We have it in black
empathy
and white.
for our veteran population. What I would have said is you don't lead on veteran issues, and that in 2005, because you don't shepherd and build bridges, you were demoted. You were fired from your job. And now we need a new generation of leaders to step up on veterans issues. So with that, sir, I really hope you find the courage to step down right now, because this is the time
Let me
for
just
you
say
to
things very
step
briefly.
down. If you don't represent our values,
Of course I
if
do.
you don't,
Randy, you know it because you reported on it in this newspaper. I was told by Dennis Hastert, and it was a Big Hill newspaper, about how all of the veteran service organizations, VFW, American Legion, Vietnam Veterans of America, Paralyzed Veterans of America, all the veterans organizations rallied behind me because I was making a huge difference and still do on veterans issues.
he's passed two laws. He's passed
wait,
two
let me-
laws since stepping down from the chairmanship. Gold Star families
Yeah.
in 2008,
and
a veteran.
And Senator Booker has two laws to his entire career.
So disappointing.
Okay.
But let me finish.
Don't claim
No,
to
no,
be
no,
the
no.
Let me
champion
finish.
of veterans
No, there's no
when
time
you've
to
never
finish.
taken a moment to sacrifice for this country. and
Mr.
our country.
Welle.
That is so disrespectful to veterans around
Mr.
this
Welle.
country.
Again, you talk.
Look, stop.
it's
Closing
just platitudes.
statements. 1 minute apiece to make your case for why you think voters should elect you.
Well, I'm grateful.
Mr. Welle.
I'm so grateful for this, and we need to do more of this. The people in this district deserve to see you in front of an audience. That takes political courage.
You've got 1 minute, Mr.
If you
Welle.
don't have the courage to do that here now, I don't think you have the courage to represent us in 2019. I'm going to serve everybody, Republicans, Democrats, and independents, because that's all I know. I'm going to move this country forward and take care of everyday working families first. I'm not going to take us backwards on women's rights and inclusion and equal pay, as Chris Smith has done. He has a backwards view of the world at a time when we need leadership and accountability in Washington. I defended this Constitution on the front lines. My friends did not come home. Some came home in caskets. And I'm going to honor their service by representing a new generation, other veterans running to the fire in Washington and protecting this Constitution against enemies, foreign and domestic.
Thank you.
Unemployed and for a year, Mr. Welle has done nothing but be condescending over this past year. We watch his blogs, his podcasts, and all the like. And I did nominate him for the Academy. And I have never been more disappointed as a politician, Welle, than I am now, and I am in him. He has not told the truth repeatedly. We have chronicled it. He does half-truths. I'll give you one example, and this is an
You've
important
got
one.
about 30 seconds left.
In 1994, I voted to create the Violence Against Women Act. I was a great supporter of it. 5 years later, it was on its, it was dying.
This is your chance to tell voters why they should vote for you.
Well, okay. Well, we'll get into the other one when we go into the
Well,
part two.
we don't have too much time.
I would ask people to vote for me again for re-election. I believe that I have the ability, I have the connections, I am bipartisan, I do believe in working across the aisle. GovTrack which is a watchdog, gives me the #1 in New Jersey for being most bipartisan, but equally important, #1 for being able to work across the Senate. We can get bills passed in the House, but if they go nowhere in the Senate, it's a dead letter. I'm able to work on the Senate side with Democrats and Republicans to promote a very, very very positive agenda for the disenfranchised and like on trafficking. I've written 4 major trafficking laws. I have a 5th one that's all ready to go in the Senate when we return in
Great.
about 3
Thank you
or 4
very
weeks.
much.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank both of you for appearing with us today. I'd like to thank my colleague Russ Zimmer for appearing with us today on the panel. For those of you who watched on Facebook Live, we thank you as well. And we remind you to come to the Asbury Park Press for your election coverage, to watch for our endorsements, which we will start running sometime next week. And thank you again, and see you next time.
Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Russ.
Thank you, guys.